You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more.
Wepa! What up, me? This is your boy Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. And today we have a treat. We have an amazing writer. Homie has worked for the big wigs like Marvel and the DC, some of the premieres with Dynamite. Now he got a fire project that he's working with his little girl, his daughter. You know what I mean? It's called A Haunted Girl from Image Comics. Available now. Let me introduce the one, the only Mr. Ethan Sachs. Wepa, how you doing, homie?
I gotta say, that's the best introduction I've ever had. I feel like running into the wrestling ring right now. I get my butt kicked, but yeah. Like,
you and me both.
I'm hyped. I'm hyped.
Woo. All right, so kiddo, thank you for taking some time today out your busy schedule, because I know that the madness of New York Comic Con is basically upon us, the eve of it, and I know you're definitely going to be there because you got rock and roll projects. So we're going to get into this one. But for those that don't know who Mr. Sachs is, can you give us a little bit about yourself, Ethan, where you're originally from, and what was the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Okay, well, I'm born and raised New Yorker. In fact, I'm now 50 years old, and I've made it 50 blocks down south from the hospital where I was born.
1 block a year?
Yeah, pretty much. I've moved around between them, but I'm back pretty close to where I was born. The very first fan thing I remember at all was one of my first memories is seeing Star Wars in 1977 in the theater. I was 4 years old, and the memory is so vivid of seeing the Star Destroyer going over my head and the John Williams score and everything. And I remember turning to look at my father. It was like, this was the greatest thing I ever saw. My father died in 1995, but it's like he's still alive. The memory is so vivid. But I've loved Star Wars ever since. And I started reading comics not long after that. I started with The Flash, but then discovered Marvel as well. So,
and how did you find the comics? Was it a self-discovery or somebody hand one to you?
Oh, my dad, just to get me to read. I think I was like maybe 5 years old, and he brought some old Flash, John Broome written Flash books. And I thought the Flash it was the coolest thing I ever saw, like just a streak of red. Yeah. So that was like my first entry. And then later on, I love the X-Men and, Star Wars comics, just a lot of Micronauts. I have a Micronauts #1 autographed by Michael Golden on my shelf right above this computer. Yeah. So
cool, man. Your pop is taking you to Star Wars, giving you comic books, exposing you to pop culture. Little did he know, I guess, that he was gonna put you on this road over here. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Were you a lone wolf in your fandom, in your geekdom when you were growing up, or did you have a tribe?
I mean, I had a lot of friends. I remember, but I remember like Star Wars was so big in 1977, 78, so I even remember being on a train. My family was going to Disney World, and we took the Amtrak train overnight, and I was walking down like the car, and I had and I saw these like in a compartment. I saw these two kids, I think they were brothers, playing with Star Wars action figures, and I said, "I'll be right back." And I went and I had this sack of action figures, and I came and just dumped it on the floor, and we played the whole trip with these two strangers about my age or maybe a little older. It's a pretty good time to be a kid.
So talk to me then. All right, so great. You were exposed. You had a tribe. When did the creative spark come? When did you start, wanting to get involved and start doing things?
Well, as far as comics goes, I never thought that's like a real job that someone could do. I thought it was like Keebler elves in a tree, like I didn't think humans made comics. I don't know what I thought, but I always loved writing. So, my parents were like, find a job where you can actually get paid writing. And so I ended up going into it as a newspaper reporter. And I ended up covering comic books and sci-fi and The Walking Dead and all this kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I was one of the younger people in the features department at the time, and no one else had any interest in this stuff. So I just got to do this because there wasn't any competition to do it.
I
So
wonder, but nobody wants this geeky stuff out, dude. I know it
I
sucks,
know,
right?
and like I got to go. I got to go to New Zealand for The Hobbit, right? So like I was in.
What?
I looked like a sausage. I got to take my family too, so I was with my little daughter, and who was like I don't know, maybe 8 at the time, and we got to do performance capture, like with the Oscar-winning effects people. And
No way.
I would never want to do this to the audience where they'd have to see me in that gray lycra suit because I look like a sausage stuffed in there. I did not have the build. You see a lot of the performance capture actors; they're really like really tightly built and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So
Don't you worry, brother. You know, we got the dad bods. I know if I put myself like
yes,
that too, I'll probably do like a
yeah,
sausage sign, you know? Sounds awesome.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so yeah. But anyway, it was a cool job. And the way I got into comics from it was I ended up becoming very good friends with Joe Quesada over the years.
Okay.
And things were not going well at the
How did you meet
newspaper.
him though?
Just from covering, like one of my first big stories was in 2001, talking about the sort of hotshot young editor in chief who was bringing Marvel out of bankruptcy. And I just talked to him many times over the years. We became friends. But long story short, I interviewed this actor who played Greedo in talking about who shot first. And that gave me an idea to do a comic book about the murder investigation, because you'd have different witnesses. It'd be structured like this Japanese movie called Rashomon, which, if for those of you out there who don't know what that is, it's a Kurosawa movie where directed by the great Kurosawa, based on a novel of a murder in feudal Japan, and all the witnesses are telling completely different versions. So I thought it'd be funny to do that with the murder investigation into Greedo. And long story short, I asked if he'd read it, and he said, sure, whatever. He was not excited. But he said he would do it. And then I didn't hear anything for like months. And then I went to Japan to visit my in-laws with my wife and kid. And the plane lands at JFK on September 7th, 2016. I get this email that would change my life. It was an email from Joe, and the subject line was like, F Greedo. And basically, yeah. So I was like, oh my God, he must have really hated it. But then I look at it, and he was like, to water it down a bit, he's like, never mind, Greedo, you can actually write. This is like one of the best first scripts I've ever read. I'd like to, circulate it around Marvel. Long story short, that ended up getting me eventually the gig for Old Man Hawkeye, which was like my first big thing. So
What?
I ended up leaving. Yeah, I ended up leaving the newspaper. The rest is history.
But that's crazy. I mean, you get a big character like a Hawkeye to do first, because especially with his popularity, because of the Avengers movie franchise and whatnot. In the cartoon, Hawkeye's a pretty big land for a first project.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was very lucky. I think, I had a pitch ready to go. I knew it was a prequel to Old Man Logan. So I had this pitch. I did a lot of research, pulled a lot of all-nighters. And I wanted, because I knew the editor was going to talk to other writers. And so I wanted to come up with something. And he also said he was going on vacation. The great Mark Basso was the editor. And so I was like, you know what? I want to get it to him before he goes on vacation, because he's like, I'll be back in like a week, and then I'll look at all the things. But I figured if I get it, maybe he reads it on the plane.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well,
I get a head start. So I don't know if that's why I got it or what, but I ended up getting it.
You just got him in the vacation mood. He was happy. He picked it up.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he's on a beach.
You made him happier.
maybe he's on a beach drinking something out of a coconut. I don't know, but he had it in front of him. So I figured I got a head start.
Amazing. So then you got that, and then you also wound up working on the franchise that you fell in love with first eventually. In Star Wars, what was that day like when they gave you the opportunity and you saw the words, you got a Star Wars book?
Well, I got to tell you, like the first thing was I did an annual, Silver Surfer annual with this assistant editor, like a young guy, Tom Groneman, who was in the Star Wars office at the time. And we just had such a great experience that he was like, yeah, maybe I can bring you in to do a Star Wars thing. So like the very first story that I wrote for Star Wars and getting that art back, and I created my daughter makes fun of me because I co-created this character with Paolo Villanelli. Actually did the art for this very first Mace Windu. It was a Mace Windu story in Age of the Republic special, and I had this character Guataco the something, I can't even remember now, but he was like a warlord, and in this 10-page story he dies by page 8. And I was like, I created this new character. If I introduced this new character in the Star Wars universe, I was so excited. And my daughter was like, yeah, but you killed him by page 8. Like he's had an 8-page run, and that's it. No one's going to remember this character because he's lasted 8 whole pages. And I was like, okay, I learned a lesson here. So it's like my first contribution. Kind of, no one remembers him because he died in 8 pages later.
But hopefully, we got a backstory one day of that. You keep the memory alive.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm digging it. All right. So, and then you got other opportunities elsewhere after this, right? I mean, the world started opening up for you. How did that feel that you started kind of now navigating and getting access to more and different characters from even different parts?
I mean, it's fantastic. Like it to play in the sandbox with all these characters, like 45 years ago, I was playing on the floor of a train with these Star Wars action figures, and now I'm at my computer pretty much doing the same thing, just playing with these characters. So there's proof that you don't ever have to grow up. But yeah, so it's been fantastic. I never get jaded. I'm working on a project that hasn't been announced yet, that, has a character I just really love. So Star Wars character I really love. So yeah.
Really? So is it an OG? Can you say, okay, what's the
I can't.
You're going to kill this character in 8 pages?
I will not be able to kill this character even if I wanted to, and I definitely don't want to. So.
All right, excellent. All right, so we giving enough attention to the big ones, all right? Because you got a fire project out now, right? That happens to be a collaboration with your daughter Naomi.
Yes.
Shout out. Share that experience of working together with your daughter and how it influenced the whole creative process. For this particular book that I'm bringing up right here, A Haunted Girl, folks. Look at that.
Yeah, so A Haunted Girl comes out Wednesday, October 11th. So literally tomorrow from when we're talking. And it is 4.5 years in the making. It's basically Naomi, myself, and the other part of the creative triangle is artist Marco Lorenzana. And we also have like great other talent. I like to say we have a great rhythm section in our band in colorist Andre Mosa and letterer Jaime Martinez. And basically this dates back to 4.5 years ago. And to get a little personal, my daughter was hospitalized with severe depression and was feeling suicidal. And it kind of, for us, like we missed so many warning signs and it came out of nowhere. But you feel guilty and powerless as a parent. And I remember because I was writing a script for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in the hospital cafeteria between visiting hours, right? So I would stay there as long as I could between visiting hours while she was in the hospital. And I have deadlines. I'm trying to get this in, and I was like so distracted, obviously. And I was like, you know what? What if I could write a story that would inspire her to like want to, persevere, want to keep battling, and maybe other people, to want to persevere and keep battling. And so I wrote down in a notebook. I always carry a reporter's notebook with me. I wrote down just one line, and that was, "The fate of all life on Earth rests with a girl who doesn't know if she wants to live." And I was like, what would that story look like if one person who can save the world needs to save herself too? And so it was like, that's all I had at that time. And over the months that followed, like we kind of fleshed out a story with Marco. It was just him and I. We came close to actually getting a deal in February of 2020. And as we're talking it through, the pandemic hits and the publisher was like, "I'm sorry, like we're backtracking on a bunch of stuff." So then, it took another little while, but fast forward to about a year ago, And I was like, my daughter's in a much better place. Would she want to write this with me? Because like it would be so much more authentic. It would be so much more like inspirational. I thought maybe it'd be good for her too. So I approached her and she was interested. And so like, yeah, it's this whole other level than what it would have been. I always joke, that meme, Steve Buscemi, from 30 Rock, where he's like dressed up as a high schooler with the skateboard. And he's like, how's it going, fellow kids? And it's like, if I'm writing teenage dialogue, is it going to sound like that? So like having her do all the teenage characters, do the hospitalization scene, the therapy scenes, like it added authenticity, it added like heart.
Right,
and I think it's a much better book because of her.
It's wonderful, actually, because I'm also a parent of a daughter, and so you could see that in the writing, that interaction actually between the characters, it felt really genuine, very well done.
Thank you.
And yeah, you could see that. I mean, and look at these covers. I mean, who did this cover first of all? That's
okay.
fire.
Well, first of all, that's Joe Quesada. I was talking about him earlier. He is one of my dearest friends. He was there for me during all this stuff as a friend, and he not only did this because he's a busy guy. He's doing covers for Batman, among many secret projects, and this is like an indie book. And so, but he not only did it, he gave it to us as a gift because he's like, I want to support this cause.
Wow.
Because like the one thing I want to mention is it isn't just a kind of cool story. Like we partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They have a guide in the back. We partnered with like therapists and other people to do sensitivity reading. Like we want this to be like a healing thing for some, we want everyone to love the story and find it entertaining, but for some people who maybe can relate to it a bit more closely, like we want it to be like, a powerful, positive thing in their lives. So anyway, he gifted this to try to help us do that. And that next cover that you were going to show us is Fico Asio, who I'm working with on several projects that I don't think have been announced yet, but is one of my favorite artists of all time, and he gifted that to us as well.
Really?
So
Look at that spider creature. Geez,
yeah, I know. Look at those. He colored that himself too. Like, man, that's. I mean, like, I love the covers on this book. Like, I can't wait to 1 through. So there are 4 issues, right? Because we wanted to wrap up the story, have a very definitive story.
All right.
And all 4. Like, wait till you see the covers for like all of them. There's like I think 13 or 14 covers total.
Yeah, you even got a Walking Dead special right here.
Yeah. So Image was
what?
Image, because this is an Image book, and because October was the 20th anniversary of the first issue, we got to do a Walking Dead variant, and that's Jeff.
You muted yourself. Your headset probably died. And sorry about that, folks. It's called technology, but you're on mute right now. So if you change your microphone on your settings.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Hey.
Also my VCR clock is blinking. If you can help me fix that. All right. So where was I? Oh, so this is the Walking Dead variant. Jeff Edwards is the artist. He's done a lot of like awesome Transformers covers. And he'll back me up on this. I actually discovered him like 12 years ago in an airport when I was working for Wizard magazine on the side.
Oh, you do some Wizard stuff? Wow, nice.
Yeah. Towards the end of the magazine, I was the TV and movies editor while I was still at the Daily News. But anyway, but I saw him in an airport on my way to San Diego, and he's just doing for Comic-Con, and he's just doing like these sketches for kids, like Venom and other stuff. And it was so good. So I got his number, and we hired him to do. Unfortunately, the magazine folded before it came out, but he did all these. Like I talked to a bunch of directors who had never done comic book movies on like what their passion project would be if they did sci-fi or comic book movies, and he drew all these like drawings for like mock-ups of their ideas, and they were so good in so many different styles. So I kept in touch with him, and since on his own, he's gone on to work for like IDW and other places. So yeah, he did this, and this is an homage to the Walking Dead 50, number 50 cover, which that classic cover where Carl is pointing a gun at this like zombie horde. So we did a play with Cleo, who's our main character, and Carl. yeah, so it's pretty. I think it's pretty cool.
It's a fire cover, and cracking in there. Let's talk about that partnership with your artist. I mean, how did that even come about, and how does his artistic style contribute to the overall narrative?
So Marco is an awesome collaborator. He was actually the artist on my very first Marvel thing, which was an 8-page story in a anthology series that was tied to Secret Empire. It was called Brave New World, was the anthology series, and we did a Daily Bugle story. And he was so good, and he's like, "I want to work with you again." And so years later, we did a one-shot creator-owned thing that was released by Heavy Metal, but it kind of came and went. And it's called Intrusion. It was like a one-shot flip book kind of horror thing. And so like, he's been a part of this for even longer than that book. Like we've been working on this for 4.5 years. So he's been doing sketches and like coming up with ideas. And a lot of the inspiration for this is, you've seen a bit of is our Japanese horror movies like The Grudge and The Ring and like, the Japanese versions, and Dark Water and all these kind of things. And so he loves that. So like you can see a lot of the visuals like are very inspired.
And who's your letterer too? Love the lettering.
Jaime Martinez. Yeah, I know he's fantastic. He also worked on Intrusion is with us as well. He's a good friend of Marco's. That's how we found him. And Andre Mosa, the colorist, was my colorist on Old Man Hawkeye. So yeah, a lot of like,
a lot of going back on these bridges. This is what you got.
Like
you know what I mean, and that's wonderful. Bringing back people you work with. I mean, because wonderful over here on the coloring. I mean, look at that last panel. That is some creepy stuff right there.
It is pretty creepy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like the whole thing is meant to feel like a PG-13 horror movie. Like because we want it to be accessible for like teenagers, too. But it wanted, because like when you go through this, it feels like a horror movie. It feels scary, and so we wanted to, the story without spoiling too much, like is empowering and cathartic, but you go through some scares to get there,
Oh yeah, there's a scene there that's I was like, oh damn. I mean, I know it's just a comic book, but geez, I said, oh nah. That scene wouldn't last very long with me there. I would be out immediately. Book over.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is one of those scenes that kind of alludes. You can start getting an idea between these pages of what could possibly be going on with this young lady.
Yeah. Well,
what happened to the last to this?
Yeah, basically the story revolves around this teenager Cleo who just turned 16. She's just out of the hospital. She's struggling to like reintegrate back to school, and on top of that, she has some sort of weird connection. At first, she doesn't believe it, but she has this connection to ghosts and a supernatural kind of doom that's kind of coming. And, it turns out that, she's the only one who can stop it potentially, and so, she has to find the willpower, the strength, inner strength that she has to like, kind of work through her struggles and in the process, like save the day.
So let me ask you: did you face any challenges while crafting the supernatural horror series, and how did you overcome them? If so,
I mean, I think the challenge is always like coming up with the mythology and making it make sense, and then you're like looking, I was like, well, did that make sense? And like you keep going back and redoing it and trying. Then it's like, oh my god, this is really complicated. And then you got to simplify it. So like I think behind the scenes, like hopefully by the time we're done, and that was my job, not my daughter was dealing less with that. So I had to make sure we didn't topple this like emotional story with like way too much, exposition and way too much like a dense plot, So it was a lot. That was like for me personally, that was like the biggest struggle, just to try to make it make sense, still be awesome. But not be overcomplicated. So like that sounds easy, but trust me, it's not.
No, absolutely not. Exactly. You also don't want to be sounding over preaching and be something over the head. You want, things to kind of align and have the reader, go through that journey. So yeah, definitely not. This is why I love great writers. You're definitely one of them. So, all right. So,
Bless you.
series is published by Image Comics. How do you pronounce that? Ziggy Publishing?
Syzygy. So Syzygy is an imprint run by Chris Ryle, who was like a longtime industry veteran, awesome guy. And I got to give him a shout out because this book would never be made without him. We brought it around to a bunch of places. We actually got a fair offer from a pretty cool publisher, but most of the places that we brought it to just like either didn't want to tackle the subject matter of suicide and that kind of stuff, but also like a lot of places were like, I don't know, like if you're going to aim for teenagers and like you want to do it more manga style or whatever. And I was like, I want this to feel like a PG-13 horror movie. Like I kind of feel like if you have a classic horror movie, teenagers are going to love it, but also people who are not like can still appreciate it. Like, I'm not trying to make it, I'm not trying to make it what, like I had a vision, I think, and I was not going to change artists. Like Marco is a brother from another mother, I think he's done a great job. And like, Chris took a chance on us. It's not necessarily the most obvious. Yeah, this is going to be a Hollywood movie, like it's not necessarily that kind of thing. Like it's a book with a deep personal message and I think an important one. And I think we're like resonating with more people than I hoped. Like, my daughter and I were just on local TV today and, our initial orders were like twice what we were expecting. And so like all this kind of stuff leads me to believe that there are people out there that want to see stories like this told.
Yes, we do. It's important. I mean, a lot of kids are going through this. Parents know that us as comic book collectors, we have people in the community even that are struggling. So, thank you for even doing that. And I'm kind of embarrassed for those publishers that don't, that are afraid to tackle these subjects. I mean, comic books is a wonderful medium in which to do it. Why not? I mean, be brave and bold. Let's go.
Well, in their defense, the economics, they always have to think about it, because they're
but it's Ethan Sachs, it's Marco, Naomi, Fico. I mean, you guys, it's a Super Voltron team with a beautiful book. How can they say no? I mean, but you know what? It's their loss, and it's a win for Image. You know what I mean? And Syzygy.
Yeah, yeah, we're lucky. I mean, Syzygy and Image are pretty cool people to be taking us on this journey.
All right, so I need another sign here. Just a couple last things before we go. Can you provide some insights then into the world building process for Haunted Girl and developing the characters a bit?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Cleo's the main character. This is a lot about her journey. She is an adopted Japanese, half Japanese American girl, and a lot of her so my daughter is also half Japanese, and I originally, when I created Cleo, and a lot has changed when my daughter sort of took over her, but it was very much I wanted my daughter to recognize herself in this character. So there are little things like Cleo is kind of spent a lot of time in her youth on like martial arts as like a hobby or sport that she's into. My daughter did figure skating. My daughter had a knee injury. Cleo had a knee injury. So there are certain things that like I wanted her to resonate. Fleur is a Mexican-American girl who's her best friend. Marco is Mexican. He was very important for him to like, we wanted to have a book where you recognize yourself, like it isn't just, a homogenous group of people or whatever. The therapist Marcy is sort of very loosely patterned on Naomi's real life therapist, like just a kind of fun, funny, empathetic person, and not like your stereotype of, the kind of cold therapist. Like we wanted to show like, because a major part of Naomi's, progress has been like trusting a therapist and like having that connection. And Gus is not all that much like me. Gus is the adopted father. I can't really tell you too much without spoiling things, but he certainly voices some of the things. Like when my wife and I were starting out on our mental health journey with Naomi, we would sometimes say the wrong things, like kind of oh, you're not going to school like 3 days in a row. like, college stuff is coming up. You have to think like we're just dumping this extra pressure, and like so some of that made it in there, even if Gus I don't think is that much like me. I can't really talk about too much about the supernatural thing. There's a lot of
Japanese, because it's only the first issue that you guys got to pick up on the, that drops on the 11th. And if you happen to be a New York Comic Con, you could get them there too. Every single cover, right? I mean, are you going to be tabling at the con or what? What was popping there?
So I'm doing a Naomi, Marco, and I. The only time the three of us will be doing a signing together is at New York's Forbidden Planet on Wednesday night, 6 p.m. It's our release party. And then Naomi and I are on an Image Comics panel on Friday morning. I don't think we're doing signings there because Image doesn't have a booth, and I'm not tabling this year. So, but if anyone finds me, I'm happy to sign at any point. I'm hitting the road by myself. California, Golden Apple, Comic Bug. I'm going to I think 7
You're going
states.
west.
Yeah, I'm cashing in all those miles on my airline miles, and I'm crashing on friends' couches, and I'm going across. I'm hitting Georgia, Florida, Greensboro, North Carolina, anywhere I can go, and then I'm going to end up in Montreal, and my daughter's going to meet me there. We're going to do 2 signings Thanksgiving weekend. So for 2 months, I'm pretty much going to be on the road almost nonstop.
Oh, wow, man. You see, I got you pumped up like a wrestler, and you're living the life of a wrestler on the road, you know what I mean? Kicking ass, you know what I mean? Awesome. There we go.
Yeah. I want to meet as many fans as possible. And, just hoping.
A lot of fans are going to thank you for this. I think a lot of kids and fans are going to thank you for this project. Because, again, yes, I have a daughter and she suffered from some of this. Yeah, absolutely. And this day and age, a lot of kids suffer from anxiety. COVID didn't help either, you know. So, mine is supposed to be going to college, and then, so her life changed from on campus to remote out of nowhere. Poor girl.
Yeah. It's their generation. It's really tough.
Yeah.
And you throw in all the existential threats that they have that I guess we grew up with maybe Cold War or whatever, you're worried about maybe nuclear. They have 5 things to worry about. They have climate change, mass shootings,
everything
to worry about. So, and then they see it on social media. There's no protection.
There's no filter to anything, unfortunately, anymore. At least back in the day, we weren't plugged in all the time. We played outside.
Exactly. So I think it's a little rough for their generation. I think that's one of the many reasons why you're seeing depression rates, anxiety rates, everything skyrocketing. So but the other thing too is the one benefit they have is my generation, no one talked about this stuff. We just, you were told to power through it, or don't tell it.
It's life.
Yeah. So I think now people are more supportive and realize it, and all this kind of stuff. So
Ethan, I think it just goes back to us being told toughen up and us not feeling right or comfortable. What you mean toughen up? I'm trying to talk to you. So I think that we came with that understanding, maybe they need to talk, and if someone heard us, we would have probably felt better at that time. But, it's all generational, I think. But all right, so beyond a haunted girl, so what besides the convention scenes, and any upcoming projects or collaborations you're looking forward to that you could actually talk about?
I'm trying to think what I can actually talk about.
He's seeing the secret life. Look at that. He's going on a trip.
I mean, I'm working on some
talk about things. Are you sure you're not CIA, Ethan? What's going on here?
I have a pretty cool graphic novel that was announced called Blood Rage that Fico Ossio, the guy who did that awesome cover, is the artist on. It's like a Viking supernatural, very gory graphic novel based on a popular board game by Kaman called Blood Rage, same title. So that's coming out sometime 2024. I don't know exactly when. I don't know if they've set a date. Marco Cicchetto did the cover. Marco Cicchetto is my artist on most of Old Man Hawkeye, so he can't escape me. So that's pretty cool. That's probably the only thing I can actually say that isn't out yet, because everything else has not been announced yet. So sorry.
No way.
But I will tell you this: I'm working right now on 4 separate things that I cannot announce, and they're all awesome. And I'm so overwhelmed because it's just like a lot of stuff to do every month.
Oh, bro, that must rattle your brain.
But they're all so cool, and I cannot wait to share them.
Yay! Can't wait either, and I do hope I get to see you at New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
And folks, I've been showing this off. You can follow our man Ethan right here on X and Instagram at Ethan J Sachs. Link is below. Most importantly, you got to pick up this book, A Haunted Girl from Image Comics, dropping tomorrow at your LCS. A variety of covers. Pick your favorite and then go on the hunt for Ethan and get that baby signed. That's what you got to do, all right? And go listen to the panel, all right? Make your life easy. Go there Friday, all right? And if not, then maybe you just stalk the front of the place, and as soon as he comes out, have him sign it. The paparazzi for Ethan, all right? And all right, make it happen. And a big salute again to your daughter Naomi, and helping make this project. Again, I think it is a beautiful book, and it's very genuine in the interactions between the father and daughter and her. How she acted. Again, I have a daughter, so I was like, wow, I'm relating to the book, just seeing like, wow, yeah, okay, I see how shorty is, and I get it. So, you know, when you're saying that, not just for the teens, here I am, a 48-year-old man myself, saying I enjoyed the hell out this book. I really am interested in seeing where it goes, especially the way you left me on the cliffhanger on that first issue. I'm like, okay, yes, you even started that way too. Kind of, wait a minute, the beginning leads to the end. Not really, because oh man, what is this thing? All right, I can't wait to find out. You tease, Ethan, you tease. All right. So with that, Hunter, you know what it is. Follow Ethan, follow Comic Crusaders everywhere, comiccrusaders.com. You know, go check out the articles, the reviews. We got several glowing reviews of Ethan's work there from my man Johnny and other team members that know how awesome Ethan is. All right. So Ethan, thank you again. Mi gente, thank you. Hasta la próxima. Much love.
Thank you very much, Al. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Wepa!
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.